Hello students, my name is Anshul Khanna. I teach at Sri Chaitanya Vijayawada Goshala. Today we will be revising the chapter of current electricity. On an average, 2 questions come from this chapter every year in NEET. This is an important chapter, easy chapter, scoring chapter. So now, without wasting time, let's get started. So, current is defined as flow of charge per unit time. The differential equation is I equals to dq by dt. From this equation only, we can conclude two things. First, the slope of charge time graph gives us current. So if you have got charge versus time graph, its slope gives you the current. And the area under the current time graph gives you the total charge that has flown. So I equals to dq by dt, slope of charge time graph gives us current, area under current time graph gives us the total charge flow. Similarly, we define another quantity that is called the average current. Instantaneous current is defined as the infinitely small flow of charge upon the infinitely small time taken. The average current that flows through a given cross-sectional area is defined as the total charge flow upon the total time taken. If a positive charge goes towards right, we say that the current is towards right, and if a negative charge goes towards right, we say that the current is towards left. Current is predominantly defined as the flow of positive charge. In whichever direction positive charge flows, we say that the current is in same direction. Now here, let me take an example to explain more. Let's say you have a container in which you have got water and then you added salt, NaCl. Now as soon as you add salt into water, it breaks down into sodium plus ions and chlorine minus ion. If an electric field is applied towards right, let's say, the positive ions, being positive in nature, will experience a force in direction of field and will start moving towards right. The negative ions will experience a force in direction opposite to field and will start moving towards left. Now since the positive ion moves towards right, because of the motion of sodium plus ion in direction of field, since it's positively charged ion, we will say that the current is towards right. The chlorine minus ion, on the other hand, will start moving in direction opposite to field. Since chlorine minus ion starts moving towards left, we again say that the current is towards right. Because of the positive charge going towards right, current is towards right. Because of the negative charge going towards left, the current is towards right. So irrespective of which type of charge particle we have, the current is in direction of field. Current has got both magnitude as well as direction. Still, it is not a vector quantity because it do not follow the law of vector addition. So let's take up an example. The charge flowing through a given cross-sectional area at any time t is given by 4t square plus 3. We have to find two things. First, the instantaneous current at time equals to 2 seconds and the average current between time equals to 2 seconds and time equals to 4 seconds. So let's start solving. What will be the instantaneous current at time equals to 2? We know that the instantaneous current is nothing but dq by dt. So when you differentiate this function, the differentiation of 4t square gives you 8t and the differentiation of 3, which is a constant, will be 0. So at time equals to 2 seconds, current at any time t is 8t. So at time equals to 2 seconds, the current has to be equal to 8 into 2, that comes out to be 16. The second part, what is the average current between time equals to 2 and time equals to 4? Average current is defined as the total charge flow upon total time taken. That is the charge that has flown up to time equals to 4 minus the charge that has flown up to time equals to 2 upon the time gap. And the time gap from 2 seconds to 4 seconds is 2. Just put it there. So you will write the charge that has flown up to time equals to 4 will be 4 into 4 square plus 3 minus the charge that has flown up to time equals to 2, that is 4 into 2 square plus 3 upon the time gap, that is 2. Here on opening bracket you can see this 3 and 3 will get cancelled. You can take this 4 common and write 4 square minus 2 square. So 4 square is 16 minus 2 square, that is 4 divided by 2. So this becomes 2 into 12, that comes out to be 24. So now two questions. First, a charge q revolves in a circle of radius r with speed v. Determine the current associated with the motion of this charge. Solution. Let's say we have got this circle of radius r in which a charge q moves with a speed v. We know that the average current associated is nothing but the total charge flow upon the total time taken. Here, the time taken by this charge to complete one cycle will be the time period, that will be equal to 2 pi r, the distance upon speed. So you can say the average current flow to be the charge that flow upon time period. Now, in place of time period, you can also write 2 pi r by v. So, you get qv by 2 pi r. But there are many more ways to write this same thing. Let's start writing them. You can here write the average current as q by t. If the charged particle rotates with a frequency f, we know that frequency and time period are reciprocal. It can also be written as 2f. Moreover, you can write in place of time period 2 pi by omega if they give tomorrow that this charged particle rotates with an angular velocity omega. So, you can even write in place of t 2 pi by omega. So, you might get q omega by 2 pi. So, same question, it is a useful thing which helps in magnetism at many places. So, remember it. Next example, which is again simple. The current flowing through a given cross sectional area is given by A minus Bt. Find the total charge flow till the time the current drops to 0. So, now here initially at time equals to 0, you can see that current is equals to A, and the current is a linear function of time. So, as the time increases, the current decreases linearly. At what time current flow will be 0? So, time at which current will be 0. How to find it? Substitute 0. So, you get 0 equals to A minus Bt. This implies that at time equals to A by B, the current drops to 0. Now, how to find the total charge flow? If we look at the current time graph, here we can say that the current time graph is going to be a straight line. The y-intercept is A, and the current drops to 0 at a time equals to A by B. So, at time equals to 0, current is A, and at time equals to A by B, current becomes 0. The area under current time graph gives us the total charge flow. So, the total charge flow has to be nothing but this area, which will be the area of triangle half into base into height. So, that comes out to be A square by 2b. So, there are type of materials. Some are conductors, some are semiconductors, some are insulator. Right now, let's talk about an electron present in conductor. Conductor are the substance which have got free electrons. The free electrons are free to move within the boundary of the conductor. Now, let's say we have got this conductor and we are focusing on one free electron present inside it. What type of motion does this free electron do? This free electron present inside conductor moves randomly. It moves in straight line between two successive collisions. The electrons moves a lot but goes nowhere, because it keeps on randomly moving, doing the Brownian motion. Now, if somebody asks you what is the average speed of this electron in the conductor, it is non-zero, because average speed is total distance traveled upon total time taken. The distance traveled is non-zero. But if they ask what is the average velocity of electron present in a conductor, so the average velocity comes out to be 0, because it doesn't have a net displacement over a large frame of time. But what happens when we place an electric field? If we deploy an electric field towards right, then the electron, which is a negatively charged particle, will experience a force in direction opposite to electric field. So, if an electric field is applied towards right, the electron experiences a force towards left, and this electron starts, in addition to keep on doing its random motion, it also starts drifting in the direction of opposite to electric field. Now, here, what is the average velocity of electron when no electric field is applied? That is 0. What is the average velocity of electron when electric field is applied? It is non-zero. This average velocity gained by electron is called the drift velocity. How to find it? We know that the charge on electron is E. If you place an electric field E, then the force acting on electron is EE. So, the acceleration of electron will be EE by m. To find the drift velocity, what is the average velocity gained by electron? First, we need to understand this term called relaxation time, tau. Relaxation time is the average time gap between two successive collisions. So, now here, if the acceleration is EE by m and the average time gap between two successive collisions is tau, once collision happens, the velocity gets randomized. After that, till the time of next collision, in the time gap tau, the electron again accelerates. So, sir, drift velocity equals to acceleration into time. Why? There is a half. In NCERT, there is no half. NCERT has missed out on this half, but technically there has to be a half. Why? The average velocity for any uniformly accelerated motion is defined as initial plus final by 2. After each collision, the velocity gets totally randomized till the time of next collision. The velocity gained is E by m into tau, acceleration into time. The average velocity has to be initial plus final by 2. So 0 plus E by m into tau divided by 2. That's why you get an extra term of half. So drift velocity comes out to be E tau by 2m into E. Now some of you might be thinking, how can you place electric field in a conductor? Because electric field inside a conductor has to be 0. Electric field inside a conductor is 0 only under electrostatic condition. Electrostatic condition means when the charges are at rest. But if we place an electric field in a conductor, the electron starts to move. This is not at all electrostatic condition. So the condition which is taught, that electric field inside the conductor is 0, that is true only when the charges are at rest. So what happens when there is an electric field? Electron starts to move. So what happens? Current flows, and that is the next chapter, current electricity. So only under electrostatic condition, the electric field inside the conductor is 0. It is not a generalized true statement. Next thing, let's define a quantity called mobility. The term itself is very obvious. Mobility. The more the mobile it is, the more it is easy to move. Okay, so higher mobility means it will be easier to move. For what? Let's understand. We say that the drift velocity comes out to be directly proportional to electric field. So the stronger the electric field you apply, the higher is the drift velocity of the electron. Yeah. Then we add up a proportionality constant, and this proportionality constant is called mobility. By comparing these two equations, drift velocity equals to mobility times electric field and drift velocity equals to E tau by 2m into E, you can say that mobility equals to E tau by 2m. Now, an important question. Let's say this is a conductor. Yeah. We started heating it up. When we heat up the conductor, the relaxation time, that is the average time gap between two successive collisions of electron, decreases. So on heating up a conductor, the relaxation time decreases. So the mobility will decrease. So for the same applied electric field, in case of heated conductor, the drift velocity will be lower. So remember that in case of conductor on heating, relaxation times decreases, the time between two successive collision decreases, because now more number of collision takes place per unit time. So the mobility decreases, so the drift velocity decreases. What is the relationship between current and drift velocity? We say that I equals to n EAVD, where n is number of free electrons per unit volume. Remember that this is not at all number of free electrons, this is number of free electrons per unit volume. What is E? Charge on one electron. What is A? The cross-sectional area through which the current flows. And what is VD? The drift velocity. Now, we define one more quantity called current density. We know that current is a scalar, but sometimes in some questions or some expressions, we require current in the vector format. That's why we have defined a vector called current density. Current density is a vector quantity. In the world of physics, we define everything in infinitely small differential format. So di equals to j dot dA. If you have an infinitely small cross-sectional area dA and at the position of dA, if the current density is j and the infinitely small area vector is dA, then the infinitely small current flowing through here is given by j dot dA. For our examination, for NEET, you just have to remember that current density equals to current per unit area. Do hell with everything. Current density equals to current per unit area. Sometimes current is also called the flux of current density, because current density into area gives you current. So flux of current density is current. From here also you can write current density. You can see that I by A equals to N EVD. So current density can also be written as number of free electrons per unit volume multiplied by charge on one electron multiplied by the drift velocity. So now in this next example, we have got a truncated cone. We can see that the area on the right is less than the area on the left. Let's say some current enters from here and exits from there. We have to place greater than, equal to, less than sign everywhere here. Think of two cross-sectional area, one at greater area, one at smaller area. The first question, current at x will be more or current at y will be more? Second, current density at x will be more or current density at y will be more? The drift velocity at x will be more, drift velocity at y will be more, or the electric field at x will be more, or the electric field at y will be more. So now, first thing, where the current will be more, at x or at y? Somebody might look at I equals to NEAVD and say that here the cross section area is more. So here the current has to be more. Okay, but here think that if here at x current is more, it means that the rate of flow of charge here is more and the rate of flow of charge there is less. It means that per unit time more amount of charge enters and less amount of charge exits. If more amount of charge enters and less amount of charge exits, then this much part between x and y will keep on getting charged, right? And that can't happen. That is why the rate of flow of charge in must be equal to rate of flow of charge out, just like the equation of continuity. So we say that the current at x has to be equal to current at y. Now where the current density has to be more. Once I am sure that current at both x and y has to be same, we know that current density equals to current upon area. So where the area is less at y, there the current density has to be more. Where the drift velocity has to be more. We have learned that I equals to NEAVD. Both for x and y, current is same. Both for x and y, the number of free electrons per unit volume remains same because that is the property of material. The charge on electron is same. So A into Vd has to be constant, just like equation of continuity. So the place where the area is lesser, there the drift velocity has to be more. Next thing, where the electric field will be more, at x or at y. We know that the drift velocity equals to mobility times electric field. So wherever the drift velocity is higher, there the electric field also have to be higher. Here we can see that the drift velocity at y is more, so the electric field at y has to be more than the electric field at x. Now next thing, let's learn about electrical resistance. We have just learned a condition that I equals to NEAVD, where N is number of free electrons per unit volume. And we have even learned that drift velocity can be written as half into acceleration into the relaxation time. If in place of drift velocity I write half into E by m into tau and then multiply it, I get an n, E into E becomes E square, 1A, 1 tau, 1 electric field divided by 2 times the mass of electron. Now one can write the electric field applied within the conductor as potential drop across the conductor divided by the length of the conductor. Okay, because electric field is nothing but potential gradient minus times potential gradient, but the magnitude equals to the rate of change of potential with respect to that. Now we can see from here the current flowing in a conductor is directly proportional to the potential drop applied across it, and this is itself called the Ohm's law. So I proportional to V, that is called Ohm's law. Now here in Ohm's law, we know that Ohm's law is V equals to IR, so I has to be equal to V by R. So when we rewrite it as adding up the proportionality constant 1 by R on right hand side, we get I equals to V by R, and when we compare this equation with this one, I equals to delta V by R, we get resistance equals to 2mL by NE square tau A. Okay. Now this whole quantity is a constant for a material at a given temperature. So we again write resistance as rho L by A, where this quantity rho is called resistivity, which is equal to 2m by n E square tau. Okay. So now focusing on this much part, resistivity equals to 2m by n E square tau. Now let's think of two material, one conductors, one semiconductors. When you increase the temperature, no doubt more electron moves from valence band to conduction band. No doubt when you increase the temperature, the number of free electrons per unit volume increases. But in case of conductors, double damage happens. Conductors are the substance which already have got huge number of free electron per unit volume. When you heat it up, there are more number of free electrons now in the conduction band, as well as those electrons have gained more energy because of more temperature, so they collide faster. So because of this, in case of conductors, when temperature increases, number of free electron per unit volume definitely increases, but there is a huge decline in this relaxation time. It becomes very small because the number of collision becomes very large. So when you heat up conductor, this quantity, the number of free electrons per unit volume increases, but the relaxation time decreases drastically, because of which the whole denominator decreases, and since the whole denominator decreases, we say that as temperature increases, resistivity increases. In case of semiconductor, there are very less number of free electrons in the conduction band. In case of semiconductor also, as temperature increases, the number of free electrons increases and the relaxation time decreases. But the fractional increase in number of free electrons is much higher than the decrease in relaxation time, because already there are very less number of electrons present in the valence band, conduction band. So now, in case of semiconductor, as temperature increases, this number of free electron per unit volume increases and relaxation time decreases. So for semiconductor, as temperature increases, the resistivity decreases. So remember that for conductor, as temperature increases, resistivity increases. For semiconductor, as temperature increases, resistivity decreases. So for conductors, as temperature increases, resistivity increases, and for semiconductor, as temperature increases, resistivity decreases. The reciprocal of resistivity is called conductivity. Now see, here we are going to learn some new term called thermal temperature coefficient of resistivity. Let's say for a small change in temperature, the change in resistivity is directly proportional to change in temperature that has been observed, and the change in resistivity is also directly proportional to original resistivity. Whenever physicists find all this, they add up a proportionality constant, and the proportionality constant of this equation is called temperature coefficient of resistivity. So we write the change in resistivity on heating equals to original resistivity into temperature coefficient of resistivity multiplied by change in temperature. So the final resistivity after heating has to be equal to initial resistivity plus change in resistivity. So rho plus rho alpha rho delta T, take rho common. So you get the final resistivity after heating equals to initial resistivity into 1 plus thermal coefficient of resistivity into delta T. For conductors, the thermal coefficient of resistivity is positive, because the change in resistivity with the change in temperature, on increasing temperature, delta T will be positive. For conductors, the resistivity increases, so delta rho will also be positive. So for conductors, alpha rho, the thermal coefficient of resistivity is positive. For semiconductors, the thermal coefficient of resistivity is negative. Why? When the temperature increases, delta T is positive, but for semiconductors, the change in resistivity is negative because the resistivity decreases. So for semiconductor, alpha rho is negative. Next term we need to talk upon is temperature coefficient of resistance. For conductors, as on heating resistivity increases, in the same way on heating resistance also increases. We say that for small change in temperature, the change in resistance equals to directly proportional to change in temperature, the change in resistance equals to directly proportional to original resistance. Then we add up a proportionality constant and write the change in resistance equals to original resistance into alpha r into delta T, and the final resistance after heating has to be equal to initial resistance before heating into 1 plus thermal coefficient of resistance into delta T. Next thing, it is mentioned in NCERT, that's why important, relationship between thermal coefficient of resistivity, thermal coefficient of resistance and alpha, our coefficient of linear expansion, class 11. What is the relationship? We know that R equals to rho L by A. So for small change approximation, we can write delta R by R equals to delta rho by rho plus delta L by L minus, because A was in denominator, minus delta A by A. Here the change in happening in everything because of the change in temperature. We have defined delta R as R alpha R delta T. We have defined delta rho as rho alpha rho delta T. We know from the chapter of linear expansion, delta L is L alpha delta T, and the change in area is original area into coefficient of superficial expansion beta into delta T. Here we can cancel out R R, rho rho, L L, A as well as delta T, delta T, delta T, delta T. So what we are left with, alpha R equals to alpha rho plus alpha minus beta. And we have also learned this in class 11 that the coefficient of superficial expansion beta equals to 2 times the coefficient of linear expansion 2 alpha. So here in place of beta, if I substitute 2 alpha, we get the thermal coefficient of resistance equals to thermal coefficient of resistivity minus coefficient of linear expansion. So let's discuss a very simple topic, which is the new found law of CBSE, that is color coding of resistor. The article is simple, it will be completed in 1 minute or so, but the point is that it only lies if you are able to make this chart. In color coding, we have assigned some numbers, some numerical values with each color. Black, brown, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, grey, white, gold, silver, no color. You should be able to draw this. The trick is the mnemonic that you know. B.B. Roy of Great Britain has a very good wife, gold, silver, no color. Okay. Now see, the digits do not start from 1, they start from 0. So the number corresponding to black is 0, brown is 1, red is 2, and so on up to 9. And then we define something called multiplier. The multiplier for black is 10 raised to power the number denoted to it. So multiplier for black is 10 raised to power of 0, for brown is 10 raised to power of 1, red is 10 raised to power of 2, 10 raised to power of 3, and so on. And then we define something called tolerance. Tolerance for gold rated resistor is 5%, for silver rated 10%, and for no color 20%. If the tolerance is 5%, it means that the resistance varies between 5% range. So let's say resistance is 100 ohm and tolerance is 5%. It means that it might be 5% more or 5% less. So it might be 5% more, 105, or it might be 5% less, 95. So now, how to use color coding? If we have any resistor, the first 2 strips represents the digit, the third strip represents the multiplier, and the fourth strip represents the tolerance. Let's take up some example. There I have shown a resistor with the strips of color blue, grey, green, and silver. Corresponding to blue, the color is 6. Corresponding to grey, the color is 8. So the digit here will be 68 into multiplier. The third one is multiplier, and that is green here. So multiplier for green is 10 raised to power of 5. So this much is the resistance. And the last line is silver, which represents a tolerance of 10 ohm. So you will say 68 into 10 raised to power of 5 plus minus 10%. This is your resistance. So it might be 10% more than this or 10% less. Let's take one more example. Red, green, yellow, gold. Corresponding to red, color is 2. Corresponding to green, color is 5. So here the digit has to be 25. Yellow, the multiplier for yellow is 10 raised to power of 4. And this is the gold rated resistor, so plus minus 5%. So now, relationship between current density and electric field, both are vector quantity. We know that from Ohm's law, V equals to IR. In place of resistance, I can write rho L by A. So V equals to I into rho L by A. If I bring this length here, I can write potential drop per unit length equals to current per unit area into resistivity. Potential drop per unit length can be written as electric field. Current per unit area can be written as current density into resistivity. We know that the reciprocal of resistivity is conductivity, so I can even write this as E equals to J by sigma. The symbol of conductivity is sigma, or J equals to sigma E. This is the relationship between current density and electric field. Next thing, if keeping the volume constant, if the length of a wire is made n times, the resistance becomes dash times. So let's solve it. We are keeping the volume of wire constant, but the length is made n times. What happens to resistance? So we know that R equals to rho L by A. It does not happen that when the length becomes n times, the resistance becomes n times, though they are directly proportional in this case. Why? Because when you increase the length, if the volume of the whole wire is constant, the cross-sectional area should decrease. When the length becomes n times, the cross-sectional area should become 1 by n times if the volume is constant. Let's say we have this wire, and for this wire, let's say the cross-sectional area is A and the length is L. We will say that the volume equals to A. So you can also say that the cross-sectional area equals to V by L. Substitute it here. So you can write resistance equals to rho L. In place of cross-sectional area, write V by L. So you get rho L square by V. So now you can see for a wire which stretches in such a way that the volume remains constant, when the length becomes n times, the resistance will become n square time, because now the resistance is proportional to L square. So when the length becomes n times, the resistance becomes simply n square times. Next question, if keeping the volume constant, the length of the wire is increased by x%, what is the percentage change in its resistance. So the solution, quite simple. We know that resistance equals to rho L by A. Now again, if this is wire, let's say area is A, length is L, we can write volume as A into L. For a small change, we can write delta V by V equals to delta A by A plus delta L by L. But this wire stretches in such a way that there is no change in volume. Since there is no change in volume, this quantity becomes 0. So you can write delta A by A equals to minus delta L by L. Now let's go back here. We need to find if the change in the length of wire, keeping the volume constant, if the length of wire is increased by x%, find the percentage change in resistance. So now here you can write delta R by R equals to delta rho by rho plus delta L by L minus delta A by A. Because of stretching, the resistivity won't change. So this quantity won't change. This is 0. So you can write delta R by R equals to delta L by L minus delta A by, and for constant volume system, in place of delta A by A, you can write minus delta L by L. So you can write the fractional change in resistance equals to 2 times the fractional change in length. But mind it, this operation works only for small change. Only for small change you can do all these. So now, if the length of the wire is increased by x%, given that x% is small, then you can say the percentage change in resistance has to be 2x%. So this means that if a wire is stretched in such a way such that its volume remains constant and the length is increased by 1%, then the change in resistance is 2%. If the length is increased by 2%, then the change in resistance is 4%. If the length is increased by 10%, then the change in resistance can't be set at 20%. Let's see that in next example. So what if the percentage change in length is more? Let's see this question. Keeping the volume constant, if the length of the wire is increased by 10%, find the percentage increase in its resistance. Solution. We say that if the length of the wire becomes n times, then the resistance becomes n square times. Since the length increases by 10%, so if the original length was L, the new length will be L plus 10% of L. That will be L plus 10 by 100 into L. That will be L plus 0.1 L becomes 1.1 L. If the length becomes 1.1 times, then the resistance should become 1.1 whole square times. So if the original resistance was R, the new resistance will be 1.21 R, 1.1 whole square. So what is the percentage increase in resistance? So you will say the percentage increase equals to the final resistance minus initial resistance 0.21 R, the change, upon original into 100. So that becomes 21%. So for a small change, if the length increases by 1%, you can say that the resistance increases by 2%. But if the length increases by 10%, 20%, if the change is big, then you can't change that small change approximation. So now, moving on to next thing, which is called understanding the Ohm's law. Ohm's law tells us that V equals to IR, but what is V here? V is the potential difference between the terminals. Now, you should know that current flows from higher potential to lower potential. This is a statement all of us know, but this statement is valid only for resistance. In a resistor, current flows from higher potential to lower potential. Now let's say here we have got a resistor of 2 ohm. On the left hand side, potential is 8 volt. On the right hand side, potential is 4 volt. So the potential difference across this resistor is 4 volt. Potential difference 8 minus 4, 4 volt. So what has to be the current in this line? So the current in this line has to be potential difference divided by resistance, 4 divided by 2, potential difference divided by resistance, so the current has to be 2 ampere. Let's see one more example. There is a 3 ohm resistance. The potential on the right hand side is 24 volt, the potential on the left hand side is minus 12 volt. The potential difference across this 3 ohm resistor is 36 volt. 24 minus 12, that becomes 36. Now what will be the current in this line? Current in a resistor flows from higher potential to lower potential. So here 24 minus 12, 36 divided by 3. So the current has to be 12 ampere. Next example. There is a resistance of 5 ohm and a current of 3 ampere flows. the potential of A is given to you as 5 volt. What is the potential of B? Now see here, since the resistance is 5 ohm and current is 3 ampere, the potential difference has to be 5 into 3, that becomes 15. It means that potential difference between A and B has to be 15. Definitely I can say that A has to be at higher potential than B. Why? Because the current goes from left to right. If current goes from left to right, current in a resistor flows from higher potential to lower potential. So if here the potential is 5 volt, here potential has to be 15 smaller, and 15 smaller than 5 is 5 minus 15, that gives us minus 10 volt. Next question. Now here we can see we have got two resistances of 2 ohm and 3 ohm, and a current of 6 ampere flows in this line. The potential of the left hand side is 10 volt. They are asking what is the potential of point X. So now here, if you look at the first resistor, resistance is 2 ohm, current is 6 ampere. So the potential drop across the first resistor has to be 12 volt. On the left hand side potential is 10. So on the right hand side potential has to be 10 minus 12, and 10 minus 12 gives you minus 2 volt. Similarly, the same current 6 ampere flows through this 3 ohm also. So the potential difference across this 3 ohm has to be 18 volt. 3 into 6, 80. On the left hand side potential is minus 2. On the right hand side potential has to be minus 2 minus 18. So that will be minus 20 volt. So what we have learned? First, Ohm's law tells you that potential difference equals to IR. Second thing, in a resistor current flows from higher potential to lower potential. So ideal cell is a cell which does not have any internal resistance. Let's say we have got an ideal cell of EMF E. You must know two properties of an ideal cell before we move on. The two dharmas. The first dharma, if you have a cell of EMF E, this means that the potential of its positive terminal will be E higher than its negative terminal. For example, let's say we have got this battery of 10 volt. If they write here 10 volt, it means that the EMF of this cell is 10 volt. The EMF of this cell is 10 volt. It means that the potential of positive terminal is 10 higher than negative. So if, let's say hypothetically, the potential of positive terminal is 8 volt, it has to be 10 higher than negative terminal. Then the potential of negative terminal has to be 8 minus 10, that is minus 2. Let's take one more example. Let's say you have a battery of 4 volt and the potential of negative terminal is 5 volt. Tell me what has to be the potential of positive terminal. The potential of positive terminal will be higher than the potential of negative terminal by an amount equal to EMF. So here the potential of positive terminal has to be 4 higher than negative. The potential of negative terminal is 5 volt. So the potential of positive terminal has to be 9 volt. This is the first dharma of the ideal cell, that the potential of positive terminal is greater than the potential of negative terminal by an amount equals to EMF. The second dharma of a cell is, whatever current enters into the cell, the same amount of current must always exit from the cell. A cell only circulates the charge. It does not create the charge. So the current entering the cell must be equal to current exiting, or the current exiting the cell must be equal to current entering. So these are the two dharmas of cell that you must know. So now let's practice some problem. In each case, find the potential at point P. The first case, there is a cell, there is a resistance, we need to find the potential of point P. Now you can see, going from left to right, the potential at left hand is 10 volt. Going from left to right, because of this battery, the potential of right hand side tries to be higher or lower. As you can see, the battery has got higher polarity of left hand side and lower on right. So going from left to right, the battery tries to decrease the potential by how much? 3 volt. Going from left to right, the resistor tries to increase the potential, decrease the potential. Now here we can see current is from left to right. In a resistor, current flows from higher potential to lower potential. So this means that for this resistor, the potential of left hand side must be higher than on right hand side. So because of this resistance of 2 ohm, going from left to right, the potential will decrease by 4 volt. How do you know 4? I into R, 2 into 2, 4. So going from left to right, the potential because of battery decreases by 3. The potential because of resistor decreases by 4. So going from here till point P, the overall potential decreases by 7. If the potential decreases by 7 and on the left hand potential is 10, what has to be the potential at point P? So the potential at point P has to be 7 less than the potential here, that will be 3 volt. Let's try one more question. The potential of left hand is given as 20 volt. Here we have got two batteries and one resistor. The current is from left to right, 2 ampere. Going from left to right, tell me how much the battery tries to decrease the potential or increase the potential. So because of battery, because of cell, this 8 volt want the potential of P to be higher, right hand to be higher or left hand to be higher. This 8 volt want potential of P to be higher. This 3 volt want potential of this left hand to be higher. So this battery tries to, going from left to right, this battery increases the potential by 8 and this battery decreases the potential by 3. So overall, going from left to right, the potential increases by 5 because of batteries. This one tries to increase by 8, this one tries to decrease by 3, overall increase by 5. Going from left to right because of resistor, if we move in direction of current across the resistor, the potential decreases because in a resistor, current flows from high potential to low. So going from left to right, because of this resistor, the potential decreases by 4. So because of battery increases by 5, because of resistor decreases by 4, overall increases by 1. So if overall potential increases by 1 and here the potential is 20, so there the potential has to be 20 plus 1, that is 21. Now let's see next case. The potential of left hand is 100. This is 2 volt battery, this is 3 volt battery. Going from left to right, this 2 volt battery tries that potential of left hand side is higher. This 3 volt battery tries that potential of right hand side to be higher. So because of this battery of 2 volt, it tries to decrease the potential going from left to right. Because of this 3 volt, it tries to increase the potential. So because of both the batteries going from left to right, what happens to potential? The potential overall increases by 1. Now let's think about resistors. There are two resistors of 8 ohm and 4 ohm. Going from left to right, when two resistors are, these two are in series? Yes. The condition for resistors to be in series is that same current should flow through them. So these two are in series. So for series, we know that we can write R equivalent as R1 plus R2. So the combined resistance of these two can be taken as 12. Going from left to right, because of resistor, the potential will decrease. How do you know decrease? Because beta, in a resistor, as you move in direction of current, potential decreases, and we are moving in direction of current. So going from left to right, the potential decreases because of resistor. How much? R equivalent 12 into current 2, that is 24. So because of battery, potential increases by 1. Because of resistor, potential decreases by 23. Overall, potential decreases by 23. Increases by 1, decreases by 24. Overall, decreases by 23. So if the overall potential decreases by 23, we can say potential at point P has to be 100 minus 23. That comes out to be 77. Next example. The potential of left hand is 80 volt. A current of 2 ampere flows. What is the potential of point P? Going from left to right, because of this battery, decreases by 4. How do you know decreases? Look at the polarity. Going from left to right, because of this battery, on going to right, potential decreases by 4. Because of this, decreases by 6. So because of first one, decreases by 4. Because of second one, decreases by 6. So because of both the batteries, the potential decreases by 10. Decreases by 4, decreases by 6, decreases by 10. Because of resistance, 2 ohm, 3 ohm, 5 ohm, the line resistance here will be 10. So because of resistance, going from left to right, the potential will, if you move in direction of current across resistor, the potential will decrease. So because of resistor, the potential decreases by 10 into 2, that is 20. So because of battery, the potential decreases by 10. Because of resistor, the potential decreases by 20. Overall, the potential decreases by 30. So the potential of point P has to be potential on left hand side 80 minus 30, that comes out to be 50 volt. Before we move on and do some more fun question, let's understand KCL. KCL is called Kirchhoff's first law sometimes, or Kirchhoff's current law. Kirchhoff's current law is based simply on the principle of conservation of charge. A junction can't create charge. A junction can't consume charge. Whatever charge comes to the junction, the same amount of charge should go away from the junction per unit time. So current reaching the junction must be equal to current going out of the junction. So for example, here you can see a junction in which 5 wires meet. Wire 1 carries current towards junction, 2 takes it out, 3 takes it out, 4 takes it out, and 5 takes it towards the junction. The current going towards the junction must be equal to current going away from the junction. So here we can write equation of KVL as I1 plus I5, current going towards the junction, should be equal to I2 plus I3 plus I4. But what if in some question we find all the currents coming towards the junction? Don't worry. Simply think of law. The current coming towards the junction must be equal to current going away. Current coming towards junction I1 plus I2 plus I3. Current going away 0. So I1 plus I2 plus I3 should be equal to 0. The beauty of Kirchhoff's current law is that it even works on a loop, just like it works for a junction. You can think that the total current getting inside the loop must be equal to the total current coming out of the loop. This loop might have some battery, some capacitor, some resistor, whatsoever, but whatever current enters into the loop, the same amount of current must come out of the loop. So now here, the current entering in the loop is I1 plus I3, and the current going out of the loop is I2. We can even write the equation of KCL here. We can write I1 plus I3 should be equal to I2. Next thing here, this is an example where I have asked write equation to find the potential at junction, and this is a very common question and many variations of this get asked. So we have to write an equation to find the potential at the junction. What to do? Let's assume that the potential of junction is V dash. Okay. Now let's assume in this first wire current goes towards the junction I1. In the second wire current goes towards the junction I2. In the third wire current goes towards the junction I3. Now taking inspiration from this, I can say that I1 plus I2 plus I3 has to be 0. I1 has to be how much? The potential drop across R1 has to be V1 minus V dash. So I1 has to be equal to V1, I can first write I1 plus I2 plus I3 has to be equal to 0. In place of I1, I can write V1 minus V dash by R1. In place of I2, I can write V2 minus V dash by R2. And in place of I3, I can write V3 minus V dash by R3. On solving this equation, we can find out the value of V dash. So, few more questions based on KVL. First question, there is this circuit having battery of 6 volt, 2 ohm, 1 ohm, 2 ohm resistance. Second circuit, 2 ohm, 2 volt, 8 volt, 1 ohm, 6 ohm resistance, and this line joins them. Question is, find the value of I. I have just said that you can even extend KVL to a loop. The current entering the loop must be equal to current exiting the loop. Now here, in the first loop, if you look, only this current I exit, there is no current entering. If there is no current entering is 0. If the current entering is 0, then the current exiting must also be 0. So the answer is straightforward, answer is shunya. No current will come out. Next question, this is one of my favorite. There are two loops, loop 1, loop 2, and they are joined like this. The current in this wire is I1 and the current in this wire is I2. Question is asked, what is the ratio of I1 by I2? And the answer is 1. Why 1? So easy. Current exiting the loop must be equal to current entering the loop. If I take this much loop only, current exiting is I1, current entering is I2, they have to be equal. So their ratio has to be 1. So now let's move on to the next study, that is KVL. Kirchhoff's voltage law, sometimes also called Kirchhoff's second law or loop law. Kirchhoff's voltage law tells us that the net potential drop across a closed loop is 0. Kirchhoff's voltage law is based on the principle of conservation of energy. Kirchhoff's current law is based on the principle of conservation of charge, and Kirchhoff's voltage law is based on principle of conservation of energy. So let's do a question using this. The net potential drop across a closed loop is 0. So there is this loop, there are two batteries, 6 volt, 8 volt and 3 resistance, 1 ohm, 2 ohm, 4 ohm. Question is, find the current in the loop. I don't know how the current looks like in this loop. So let's say an anti-clockwise current I flows. And then start from any point and start writing the equation of KVL. Let's start from this point. Okay, let's call this point X. If the potential of this point is X, when I go across the resistance, the potential will decrease. So if the potential of this point is X, the potential of this point will be X minus I into R. So I into 1, that is I. Going across this battery, I am going from higher potential to lower. So the potential of this point will be X minus I minus 6. X minus I minus 6. In this component, we are not getting anything. So the potential of all points is same. So the potential of this point is also X minus I minus 6. Going across this 8 volt up. If I go from higher potential to lower potential, the potential will further decrease by 8. Because I am going from higher to lower. So here potential will be X minus I minus 6 minus 8. The current in the circuit, I have assumed is anti-clockwise, so through this 4 ohm, it will be upward. So the potential of this point has to be X minus I minus 6 minus 8. And here I am going across resistance in the direction of current. So the potential will further decrease by I into R, 4I. And then go from this point to this point again. When you go from this point to this point, you are moving in direction of current across resistors, so that you can write the potential of this point to be x minus I minus 6 minus 8 minus 4I minus 2I, and that has to be equal to x, because the net potential drop across the closed loop has to be 0. So this final potential has to be same as initial. Cancel out x, and here you get, kids, 14 minus 14 equals to I plus 4I plus 2I, that is 7I. So you get I comes out to be minus 2. What does the minus sign tells us? The minus sign tells us that my assumption that the current is anti-clockwise is wrong, and the current in this circuit must be clockwise and equal to 2 ampere. So let's do few more example without using KVL. Now see, there is this circuit. Question is, what is the current in the circuit? And the question is very simple. Look at this 12 volt battery. This 12 volt battery tries to drive current clockwise or anti-clockwise. Yes, you are right. It tries to drive it clockwise. This 6 volt battery tries to drive current anti-clockwise. Who wins? Definitely 12 volt wins. It has got higher EMF. What will be the resistance of whole line? First of all, you should know that these resistance are in series or parallel. Since they are all part of one loop, the current flowing in all three resistances have to be same. Since the current flowing all three resistance have to be same, these three resistances are in series. So now, how to solve? We know that potential drop equals to I into R. For this whole loop, this 12 volt wanna drive current clockwise, 6 volt wanna drive anti-clockwise, 12 volt wins. So the overall EMF of circuit is 6 volt. The overall resistance in the circuit is 6 ohm, because all three are in series, 2 plus 2 plus 2. So the current has to be 1 ampere clockwise. So there will be a 1 ampere current clockwise. So let's do the same thing, but this time they have changed the question little bit. A simple single circuit, but this time they are asking what is Vx minus Vy. Now this battery of 14 volt, you can see, tries to drive current clockwise, while this 4 volt battery tries to drive current anti-clockwise. Who wins? Definitely the 14 volt battery wins. So what is the overall EMF of circuit? The overall EMF of circuit you can think of is 10 volt. And what is the resistance? These two are in parallel? No, they are in series, because the same current flows through both of them. But sir, they look like in parallel. In the world of physics, when things look in parallel, they may or may not be in parallel. There are specific conditions that has to be followed before we conclude that something is in series or something is in parallel. So now here, the current has to be clockwise, because the EMF overall wins clockwise. What has to be the resistance? This 3 in series with 7, the resistance will be 10 ohm. So what has to be the current? Current has to be EMF divided by resistance, that will be 1 ampere. But they did not ask me current, but I need current to find Vx minus Vy. How? Now once I know that in this whole circuit a current of 1 ampere will flow clockwise, I can find the potential difference between x and y. How? So see, either I can go from x to y following this upper path, or I can go from x to y following this lower path. Whichever path you choose, follow it. For teaching purpose, I am choosing this upper path. While going from x to y here, because of battery coming in this path, the potential decreases by 4. Since the current also goes from x to y in this path, and there comes a resistor of 3 ohm, because of resistor, the potential decreases by 3 volt. So because of battery, potential decreases by 4, because of resistance, potential decreases by 3. So going along this path from x to y, the potential decreases by 7. So I can say the potential of y has to be 7 less than the potential at x. So potential at y has to be potential at x minus 7. So I can rearrange and write Vx minus Vy, Vx minus Vy has to be 7. Sir, I did not get it. Let's do more. Next question. Again, you can see we have a singular loop. Again, I have asked the same question, what is Vx minus Vy? Now here, you can see this 20 volt wanna drive current clockwise. The 40 volt wanna drive current anti-clockwise. Who wins? Definitely the stronger battery wins. So now the overall EMF in this circuit has to be 40 minus 20, that comes out to be 20 volt. What is the equivalent resistance of the whole circuit? Each component here is in series, because the same current must flow through all of them. So what will be the resistance? 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1, 1 plus 1, 2, 2 plus 2, 4, 4 plus 1, 5. So I know that the equivalent EMF is 20, resistance is 5, so the current has to be 20 by 5, anti-clockwise 4 ampere. Now see, my mission is not at all finding current. My mission is to find the potential difference between x and y. I can choose two paths. Either I can go x to y following upper path, or I can go following lower path. Last time I chose upper path, so this time I will try to explain going through lower path. If I go from x to y following this lower path, going from x to y, because of this battery, the battery wants the potential on going to y to decrease by 20. Yes, because of these resistor of 2 ohm plus 1 ohm, effectively 3 ohm, the potential will decrease. You are going in direction of current. So because of resistor, the potential decreases by 12. How do you know? 3 into 4, 12. So going from here to here, because of battery potential decreases by 20, because of resistor potential decreases by 12, so overall potential decreases by 32. It means that potential of y has to be 32 less than the potential of x. So potential of y has to be equal to potential of x minus 32. So we can say that Vx minus Vy should be equal to 32. So this time we will do. Okay, try ahead. Now this time, rather than drawing rectangular circuit, they have drawn triangle. That's all. But it's a single loop question, so it has to be easy question. Let's see. This 30 volt wanna drive current clockwise. This 10 volt wanna drive current anti-clockwise, as well as this 20 volt also tries to drive current anti-clockwise. So this 10 volt, this 20 volt support anti-clockwise current, while this 30 volt supports clockwise. Who wins? It's an even-Steven pattern. So 30 volt clockwise, 30 volt anti-clockwise, so the overall EMF kind of comes out to be 0. So no current flows in this circuit, but still we have to solve this question, what is Vx minus Vy? Now will Vx minus Vy be 0? I can go from x to y following this shorter path or this longer path. I will definitely go by shorter path. Going from x to y here, since there is no current in the circuit, there will be no potential drop across resistor. Since there will be no potential drop across resistor, going from here to there, because of resistor, no change in potential. But going from here to there, you can see there is a battery. So because of this battery, going from x to y, the potential decreases by 10 volt. So I can say that the potential of y has to be less than that of x by 10. So potential of y equals to potential of x minus 10. So potential of x minus potential of y has to be equal to 10 volt. The real world cell, apart from having the property of electromotive force, also has one more property, that is called internal resistance. Internal resistance, though being internal, is many a time shown outside in series. Sir, do I have to draw it on right hand side or left hand side? It doesn't matter, you can draw it on any side. Now there are two cases, charging and discharging of cell. To make you understand this, I always ask this question. Let's say there are two cells of 4 volt 20 volt having internal resistance 2 ohm and 6 ohm. The 4 volt cell tries to drive current anti-clockwise, while the 20 volt cell tries to drive current clockwise. Who will win? Definitely the stronger one will win. What will be the current in this circuit? So the equivalent EMF kind of comes out to be 20 minus 4, that is 16. R equivalent, both are not in parallel, they are in series because the same current flows through them, 8. So the current has to be 16 by 8, that is 2 ampere. So there has to be a current of 2 ampere. Now what I ask students is, out of these two cells, one is said to be getting charged, one is said to be getting discharged. Yes, this 20 volt is said to be getting discharged, and the 4 volt is said to be getting charged. So what is the condition for a cell being getting charged or discharged? If the current enters the positive terminal of cell, then the cell is said to be getting charged. So charging case, when the current enters the positive terminal of cell, the cell is said to be charged. What is the definition of discharging? When the current exits the positive terminal of cell, then the cell is said to be discharging. So now here, what is the potential drop across a cell when it is getting charged? So let's say we look at these 2 points, x and y. I can say that if the potential of this point is x, potential of this point will be x minus e, because I am going from higher to lower across the battery. And the potential of this point, since we are going in direction of current, will be x minus e minus IR. So I can say potential at point y equals to potential at x minus e minus IR. So we can say that potential at x minus potential at y equals to E plus IR. So remember that across a cell getting charged, the potential drop is more than its EMF. If the EMF is E, then the potential drop across a charging cell is E plus IR. On the other hand, the potential drop across a discharging cell is less than its EMF, which is E minus IR. How to find? Let's say the potential at this point is Vx, the potential at this point is Vy. You will write the potential of this point as Vx minus E, and since you are going in direction opposite to current, going from here to here, you will write potential Vx minus E plus IR. So you will say Vy equals to Vx minus E plus IR, or Vx minus Vy equals to E minus IR. So in case of a charging cell, the potential drop across terminal is more than EMF and is equal to E plus IR. In case of discharging cell, the potential drop across terminal is less than EMF and equal to E minus IR. In case of no current flowing through the cell, neither getting charged nor getting discharged, no current flowing, then the potential drop across the cell is EMF. So the potential drop across the cell is equal to its EMF when no current flows through it. So now let's learn series and parallel grouping of cells. Let's say we have got multiple cells having EMF E1, E2, E3, E4, internal resistance R1, R2, R3, R4 connected in series. They are said to be in series when same current flows through them. So now here, how do you write the equivalent? So let's say we wish to replace all 4 cells and place only one cell having EMF equals to E equivalent and internal resistance equals to R equivalent. So what has to be the EMF and what has to be the R equivalent? The EMF equivalent has to be E1 plus E2 minus E3 plus E4. Sir, why you did minus? Because here the polarity is flipped. E1 plus E2 minus E3 plus E4. And the R equivalent simply has to be R1 plus R2 plus R3 plus R4. Resistance is always positive. That's why grouping in series is very, very easy. All you have to take care of is of polarity of battery. Okay, if any battery has been turned, you have to subtract its EMF. Now, let's say we have got resistances in batteries in parallel rather than in series. So if we have got multiple batteries of EMF E1, E2, E3, E4, internal resistance R1, R2, R3, R4 connected in parallel, and we want to replace them all and place only one single battery of EMF E equivalent having internal resistance R equivalent, then what to do? The R equivalent is exactly like that of resistances in parallel. So 1 upon R equivalent equals to 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2 plus 1 by R3 and so on. As for EMF equivalent comes out to be E1 by R1 plus E2 by R2 plus E3 by R3 plus E4 by R4 upon 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2 plus 1 by R3 and so on. When students look at this formula, they feel it that it's too cumbersome, so let's not remember it. Okay. So now see here, one thing. All this quantity 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2 plus 1 by R3 and so on. This is what? This is nothing but 1 by R equivalent. So if in place of all of this you write 1 by R equivalent, that R equivalent goes into numerator. So what I recommend students to remember is that E equivalent is E1 by R1 plus E2 by R2 plus E3 by R3 into R equivalent. Now we will use this to solve some questions. So let us do 2 questions quickly using combination of cells. In this circuit, you can see there are 2 lines having 12 volt battery, 3 ohm internal resistance, 6 ohm internal resistance, and they are asking what is the current through this 4 ohm. I can find current through this 4 ohm easily if I know what is the equivalent of these 2 cells. We have just learned when you replace 2 cells connected in parallel, R equivalent comes out just like resistance in parallel. Okay. So when you have got 2 resistance of 3 and 6 in parallel, their equivalent resistance comes out to be 3 into 6 by 3 plus 6, that is 18 by 9, that is 2 ohm. So in place of these 2 resistors, I can place a single resistance of 2 ohm. Now what has to be the EMF applied? I have just said in the last slide, E equivalent equals to E1 by R1 plus E2 by R2 plus E3 by R3 and so on into R equivalent. So E1 by R1, 12 by 3, 4 plus E2 by R2, 12 by 6, 2. So E1 by R1 plus E2 by R2, 4 plus 2, 6 into R equivalent, that is 2. So you do E1 by R1 plus E2 by R2 into R equivalent, that comes out to be 2. So this became beta 4 plus 2, 6, 6 into 2, 12. So in place of both these cells, there is a single cell of 12. Now, external resistance is how much, kids? 4 ohm. So you have reduced this circuit into this circuit. Now they are asking what is the value of I. You can see this is a single circuit, the resistance of circuit is 6, EMF is 12. So the current has to be 12 by 6, that is 2 ampere. Now let's do next question. There are 3 lines, first line, second line, third line. All 3 lines have got batteries. They are asking what is the current in the third line. If I wish to find current in third line, I will try to combine the first and second line. How to combine them? If rather than thinking of these 2, I think of a single line, what has to be the resistance. So these two resistance of 4 and 4 will be treated like in parallel, their equivalent will be 2 ohm. Now, to find the E equivalent, we know that E equivalent equals to E1 by R1, 20 by 4, 5, plus E2 by R2, 40 by 4, 10, into R equivalent, and the R equivalent is 2. So that comes out to 15 into 2, 30. So in place of these two batteries, place a single battery of 30 volt. Okay, so I have combined the upper two lines. Now, the third line, 10 volt, 2 ohm. Now, look that this 30 volt wanna drive current anticlockwise. This 10 volt also wanna drive current anticlockwise. Both of them wanna drive current anticlockwise. So the overall anticlockwise EMF comes out to be 40. Resistance comes out to be 2 plus 2, 4. So the current has to be equal to 40 by 4, that is 10 ampere. Okay. I use parallel combination of battery to solve all question. It helps me save time. So now here, two more important properties about parallel combination of cell that we should know. The first one, if all cell have got same EMF, let's say E, and are connected in same polarity sense, then no matter what is the internal resistance of three cell, so all have got E, internal resistance R1, R2, R3, and all of them are connected in same polarity sense, then no matter what is the internal resistance, the equivalent EMF also comes out to be. How to prove? Very simple. We know that E equivalent equals to E1 by R1 plus E2 by R2 plus E3 by R3 upon 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2 plus 1 by R3. If all of them have got same EMF, I can take EMF common, and then this quantity 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2 plus 1 by R3 get cancelled. If you look at the last example which I took, in that I have got two batteries of 12 volt, 12 volt. I already knew because of this property that the EMF equivalent will come out to be 12. So this property is first. So no matter what is the internal resistance, if EMF of all the cell is same, then the equivalent EMF also comes out to be E. Second, be careful about the polarity of battery. Let's say you have got these four cells having EMF E1, internal resistance R1, E2, R2, E3, R3, E4, R4. Now when you write the equivalent EMF, don't write E1 by R1 plus E2 by R2 plus E3 by R3 plus E4 by R4 into R equivalent. No, this third battery has been flipped in polarity. So here you should get a minus sign rather than plus. So two things. First, if all the cells connected in parallel have same EMF and are connected in same sense, then the equivalent EMF also comes out to be E, irrespective of the value of internal resistance. First thing. Second thing, if you have got multiple cells connected in parallel, be cautious about the polarity of cell when you are finding the equivalent. So let us do two more questions using parallel combination of cell. Here you can see there are three lines, 2 ohm, 4 ohm, 2 volt, 8 volt, 2 ohm, 15 volt, 1 ohm, 6 volt, 1 ohm, and we have to find the current in central line. What to do? First of all, make each line smaller. So you can think of this first line. They have drawn here two cells just for drawing. If I mark this point as A, this point as B, all these three lines are connected between A and B. So all these three lines, the first line, the second line, and third line are in parallel. Now reduce this first line. So 8 volt wants A to be higher, 2 volts want B to be higher. So overall 6 volt towards A to be higher. So you can think of it as 6 volt. And resistance, these two are in series. So you can just write a resistance of 6 ohm. In this second line, you have got a resistance of 1 ohm and a battery of 6 volt. In the third line, you have got these two just designed 2 plus 1, 3. They are in series, 15 volt, and this is 3 ohm. Now see better, all three are connected in parallel between A and B. So I have reduced this circuit in my imagination to this. Now I need to find current in the middle line. If I need to find current in the middle line, I should combine the first and third line. Now if you are having problem, these three elements are in parallel, so you can rearrange in your imagination. Keep the first line here, 6 ohm. Draw the second line, third line in place of second, 15 volt, 3 ohm, and then this third line, 1 ohm and 6 volt. Now you can combine these two. You know that the R equivalent will be just like resistance in parallel, 6 parallel 3 gives you resistance of 2 ohm. What will be the equivalent EMF? E1 by R1, 1 plus E2 by R2, 5 into R equivalent, and the R equivalent of there comes out to be 2. So this is 6 into 2, that is 12. And you can create this line as it is. So 1 ohm and here a battery of 6 volt. Oh, sorry, I have drawn this polarity wrong. This polarity is higher towards B, higher towards the lower side. Now, you can see kids, this 12 volt wanna drive clockwise, this 6 volt also wanna drive clockwise, both of them wanna drive clockwise. The overall EMF comes out to be 12 plus 6, 18, and the internal resistance comes out, overall resistance comes out to be 3. So the current comes out to be 18 by 3, and 18 by 3 is 6. So the answer to this question is 6 ampere. Let's do one more. Here also they have asked what is the current in this central line. So there is 4 ohm 40 volt, 4 ohm 20 volt, and this line. First of all, it's just a diagram thing. Think of these 3 lines connected between A and B to be in parallel. The first line, the second line, the third line. We need to find current in this line. So we will draw this line separately in the end. So 2 ohm and a battery of 2 volt. But while drawing, keep in mind I am keeping A higher, B lower. Now draw this first line, A upper, B lower, and 40 volt want potential of A to be higher. So I am drawing this 4 ohm, and the 40 volt want potential of A to be higher. Okay. I need to find current in this line from B to A. That's why I have kept this third line separate. Similarly, this first line of also 4 ohm 20 volt, I will draw it here. But notice that this battery of 20 volt want potential of B to be higher. So when you draw this battery, be very cautious about its polarity. 20 volt. Now to find current in this third line, let us first combine these 2 lines. When I combine these 2 lines, the R equivalent comes out to be 2. Okay, 4 parallel 4, 2. Not at all problem. But what is E equivalent? Now here you must notice EMF are in opposite sense. So you will write E1 by R1 10 minus E2 by R2 20 by 4 5 into R equivalent 2. So that comes out to be 10. So rather than these two, place a battery like that of 40 volt but of EMF 10, because while doing E1 by R1 plus E2 by R2, I have taken the polarity sense of E1 as positive, that's why 10. Now here, draw one more resistance of 2 ohm and a battery of 2 volt. Now see, overall clockwise EMF is 8, this 10 volt want, clockwise 2 volt want, anti-clockwise 8, overall resistance is 4, so the current comes out to be 8 by 4, and 8 by 4 is nothing but current of 2 ampere. But sir, you got current clockwise. In the question, they have marked current upwards from B to A. You have got from A to B. This means that the appropriate answer to this question should be minus 2 ampere, because I have got current in opposite direction. So the remaining part of current electricity we will do now in lecture 2.